Welcome to Fantasy Fanline.
What am I, chopped liver, Greg?
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Fantasy Fanline, the fantasy football call-in show, putting you on the air with industry experts each and every week. I'm your host, Greg Scalera, and that's it. No, I'm just kidding. Contrary to our intro video, I am here with my co-host, Sanchi Value. Sanch, welcome back to the show for another great week. I'm sorry you were not on the intro. I realized about 2 seconds before we went live that you weren't here last time we had this guest, and my lazy self just recycled the same intro video from last time. I'm glad you could join us. It's like a bonus. Like, people watched the opening, they were like, "Oh no, it's a Greg show. I'm gonna tune out," and hopefully they stuck it out because now they see you here and they're here to stay. How are you, man?
I'm here. I'm doing great, man. Feeling way better than last week. Feeling great after that guaranteed Jerick McKinnon touchdown.
That might have been the call of the year.
I just felt it in my bones, man. I felt it in my bones after that one guy asked the question about McKinnon. I'm like, you know what? He's going to freaking score this week. And put it out there. And, you know, he was in my DFS lineup.
I hope he took your advice. Maybe we'll hear from him today. Maybe he'll call in and thank you for your prediction. You had a big week last week, man. You had a couple of wins. We'll talk about the other one when we get to the Patreon part of the intro. But big Sanchi Value week. And then I come in and I leave you off the intro video.
Okay, I forgive you.
Well, it's maybe the most important week of the season. It's week 14, the finale of the regular season. Some of you are already in your playoffs, as in you have a spot locked up. Some of you are out of your playoffs, but for a lot of you, it is do or die time for many, and hopefully we can help you do rather than die for the next hour as we take your calls. We are a call-in show, 618 Fanline. We'll be live for the next hour. You can pick up a phone, call us, ask us anything about your roster, start sit questions. We have some keep cut questions, even this late in the season. No more trade questions unless you're calling about dynasty trades, in which case we'll be happy to talk to you about those. Or you could leave a comment wherever you're watching us. We stream live on Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube. If you leave a comment wherever you're watching, we could take your question that way as well and answer it for you. Just make sure you subscribe while you're doing that, because we are live every Saturday of the regular season with an expert guest. And we have a great one. We'll get to him here in a minute. But before we do that, I want to say thank you to our supporters, our executive producers, if you will, our small but growing population of Patreon supporters over at patreon.com/fantasyfanline. You can support us there. We are an independent show. We have all kinds of great exclusive perks over there, ranging from priority call-in codes to playing with us in listener leagues to getting shout-outs on the show, which is what our supporters are about to get now. Alan Wu, Josh Green, John Lanfranca, thank you guys for your support. And while we're talking about Josh Green...
Yeah, is Josh watching right now?
Josh has gotten the better of me on a couple of bets this year. The first one resulted in me dressing as Pat McAfee cutting a promo a few weeks ago. The second one, which our guest, I'm sure, will be sorry that he missed. I had to wear a Packers shirt live on the show last week for Bears versus Packers week. I satisfied that bet questionably. I did wear a shirt with that stupid picture of Aaron Rodgers with his face mask up his nose. But technically it was a Packers shirt. And I felt like I had to wear all Bears this week to cleanse myself. It's a number 14 jersey for week 14. Might be backwards for you all watching if it's mirrored. It is not week 41. It is week 14. But Sanch, you finally got one over on him last week. You want to talk about it?
Don't want to talk about the game, not so much. My G-men tying the Commanders, it was as ugly as it gets. But I was taking that 2.5 point spread he offered every day, and I knew it was easy money. So let me know when you want to bet again, Josh. I'm here.
He's a man of his word. Right after that game, he did go ahead and up his Patreon tier, just as he promised he would if he lost that bet. And in return, you don't have to, cut a promo in support of the Cowboys. That would have been a hard day for you,
Super Bowl contenders.
Yeah.
Realistically, they are, but there's no chance in hell I wanted to get on air and we them boys it up. No chance.
No, we don't have to get into that. You won the bet. So Josh, thank you for your support. Thank you for your additional support as a result of losing that bet. We appreciate all of our supporters over there. And without further ado, I'm going to bring in a Packers fan. He's a good friend of the show, Marvin Elequin. He's a writer for the Fantasy Footballers and Yahoo Sports, a contributor for Dynasty Nerds. He is at ff_Marvin on Twitter. Dude, welcome back to the show.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. Had ton of fun last time, so it was a no-brainer to join in again.
Yeah, and obviously it's your first time meeting Sanch. I know he and I are both big fans of your work. We're huge, Fantasy Footballers guys. One of your articles is a weekly read for me on Yahoo Sports. The expected points and efficiency article, always good stuff for me throughout the season. You also do the weekly Dynasty report, which I'm not a big Dynasty player, but I'm sure Sanch, probably eats that up. He's our Dynasty guy on the show. You're kind of always writing, always contributing. Great follow on Twitter. Your last issue of the weekly points and efficiency article on Yahoo Sports had some really valuable stuff, and I don't want to give it away because I want people to go read it for themselves. But some big time takeaways. Put your faith back in DeAndre Swift. The Garrett Wilson hype is real. This is all stuff that Sanch has been preaching all year. Don't sleep on Tyler Lockett. Stay on Jalen Hurts. But the reasoning, the logic behind all of these points is so good. I mean, you're a guy who just regularly changes my mind about how I feel about fantasy players on a weekly basis, and it's usually for the better. Is there anything I'm missing? Anything that you want to let our listeners know? Where to find you, what kind of stuff you do regularly?
No, I think that sums it up perfectly. So I appreciate you all that up. But just follow me on Twitter. Anything that I create ends up on there, and I love interacting with people on there, asking questions, things like that. It's always a fun time. I will say though, I'm a little bummed that I missed. Was it last week's episode where you had the Packers shirt? That would have been a fun one to join in. So I'm a little bummed.
It was not fun, Marvin. It was not fun. I did the best I could with it, but my skin was crawling the entire hour. As soon as I finished, I took it off, I threw it in the wash, and I'll probably never wear it again, but it will be sitting in my pajama drawer likely for the rest of my life.
At least you can sleep at night knowing the Bears probably have a better future than the Packers for the next couple of years. So there's always that, right?
I know.
As soon as Rodgers retires, they'll finally get him.
Any minute now.
Get him.
Yeah. And then Jordan Love's going to somehow be a future Hall of Famer because that's our life. That's how this relationship has gone for the last 2 decades. But that's neither here nor there. We're here to talk fantasy football, not about my eternal misery as a Chicago Bears fan living in Central Jersey. So we're live for the next hour, 618 Fanline if you want to give us a call. We also have a website, fantasyfanline.com, with a mailbag on it. If you want to go over there, submit some questions between shows if you can't join us live. We got a ton of those this week because playoffs are coming. People got questions. One of our people who wrote in said, I'm overthinking everything. I think everybody is overthinking everything now. Yeah, a lot of do or die matchups this week. Let's get it rolling. Eric in Texas wants to know right off the bat here, would you start Tony Pollard over Joe Mixon this week if Mixon plays, which I believe he is. Mixon has a pretty good matchup. Tony Pollard has a great matchup. I mean, I'll get into the recent stats and stuff, but Marvin, I'm going to kick this right over to you, man.
Yeah, I don't know if you can really go wrong with any of these guys because both of them have outstanding matchups. Both matchups are in the bottom 10 in fantasy points allowed to the running back position over the last 6 weeks. So you can expect a lot of points from both of them. I do lean Joe Mixon, though, here a little bit just for a couple of reasons. So there's a higher over-under for that game. I do believe that it's going to be a higher scoring game potentially. And from, you mentioned that expected points article. When you look at Mixon's expected points this season, he's the RB3. That just means he has their baseline, and he's used heavily in that offense in a variety of ways. Tony Pollard is used as well, but you have Zeke there factored in. You have CeeDee Lamb. You have, obviously, the Bengals offense is no slouch either, but the fact that Zeke is there taking away some of those rushing opportunities does limit Pollard a little bit. When you're as efficient as Pollard, you might need 10 touches to get you 20 points. So that as well. The only concern I have, though, with that Houston matchup is if that offense doesn't really put up points, I could see the Dallas Cowboys running it down with Zeke. And then at the same time, by the fourth quarter, if they're up by 30 points, they might not need to have all out there, and they might bench Pollard just to save him for, for bigger games going forward. So that's why I lean Joe Mixon. I think it's a closer game and a higher scoring game too.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, typically when you see an offense coming in who are favored to win by a lot, which, the Cowboys are favored over the Texans, you're like, okay, I want as much of that running back as I can. But Pollard isn't really that traditional ground and pound, run out the clock kind of guy. He's the more explosive, big play guy that when you're trying to catch up or, it's a neutral game script, you're looking for him to bust something big. He's not going to be the guy to move the chains, 3-4 yards on the ground, keep the clock running. That sounds like a recipe for a Zeke game. Sanch, which way are you leaning here?
As I said, this was one of the hardest questions of the year for me. It's so hard to bench Tony Pollard just looking off his past performances. Like, you go look at his numbers and you're just like, wow,
he is the overall running back 2 since week 6. That's an 8-week period.
You look at Mixon's monster against Carolina, and you don't want to put him on your bench either. But I think Mixon might lose a few carries. I know everyone expects him to come back and get his full workload, but Perine's been balling. He's been looking really damn good for the Bengals offense, and I think they know that. I know they love Mixon, but I think he's gonna lose some carries. I'm sure a lot of people will disagree with me. Mixon will come right back in after the concussion, get his full workload back. I'm not too sure about that. I think I'm gonna be the outlier here, but I think I'm gonna go Pollard.
That's something we see sometimes when a bell cow running back goes down and somebody steps up and crushes it in their absence. I'm thinking, for example, David Montgomery earlier this year goes down. Khalil Herbert comes in. He's great. Montgomery comes back, and all of a sudden it's like a 60-40 split, 70-30, call it what you will. So that 100% workload bell cow role might change after this year, or after this week rather, in Cincinnati. Marvin, do you see any chance of that happening?
Yeah, absolutely. There's always that chance. I always just go back to the fact that Perine's been in that offense for a while, and he's always taken a handful, sometimes even around the goal line, a couple of those opportunities. So I do think there's a possibility, especially with them kind of preparing for the playoffs, trying to make that run, right? You don't want to overuse Mixon, especially now that I think they're essentially locked in for the playoffs. I think they're pretty much there. And so I definitely think that's a possibility. And I do think, when we're talking about, Mixon and Pollard, I mean, that's an awesome problem to have, because I think both those guys realistically could be top 10 options this week. So can't go wrong with either.
For sure.
Well, I guess I'm the tiebreaker. So let me look at some numbers here. Like I said, Pollard overall running back 2 since week 6 over an 8-week period in which he's played 7 games and a bye. So he's got double-digit carries in every one of those games. He's averaging a little over 3 targets per game. So his workload is awesome. He's not that traditional change of pace back where he comes in and gets 7-8 carries on the ground and is super efficient. He's getting 12, 13, 14 carries, and he's still efficient with them. So top 7 finish in 4 of his last 5 games, but the one where he didn't hit, he was the running back 40. So he's still got that opportunity to disappear. That's probably not going to happen with Joe Mixon, who's also been good. Like you said, he's put up over 50 points in his last healthy game before he went down with the concussion. But other than that, he's been mostly like a low running back 1, high running back 2. Like when he hits, he's running back 12, 13, but when he misses, he's still not finishing past like running back 27. So he's not going to kill you the way that Pollard could potentially, depending on game script. Takeaway being Pollard is an elite talent, higher ceiling, probably lower floor until he gets that backfield to himself, which isn't going to happen this week unless Zeke goes down. Mixon won't disappear unless he's hurt, but for whatever reason, he's just really got that one boom game on his resume. So talking myself through this process, I am probably going to start Tony Pollard, but it's really hard. I don't think there's a wrong answer here. I'm going
with those hot takes.
I know. We might look really stupid on this one, sitting a guy like Joe Mixon, who does have the potential to come out and be a week winner single-handedly, but we haven't really seen that for whatever reason. We saw more of it out of Samaje Perine in that role the last few weeks.
Perine's looked so damn good in that.
He was booming harder than Mixon did most of the season. So if I'm a betting man, which we inherently are playing fantasy football, Mixon has lived around that kind of 12, 13, 15 point range this year, which is great. I'm probably going to roll the dice and hope for like a 20 plus point week out of Pollard, just running the ball down Houston's throat.
With that being said, I actually put a future on the Bengals yesterday. I think Burrow's going to be back. I think they're going to get red hot again and make a nice run.
I like
it's been
it.
A weird year.
I love it.
I'm going to use that opportunity to transition to a late question that we got today that you guys haven't even seen yet. We are on every social media platform pretty much at Fantasy Fanline. We take questions the morning of the show. We got one through Instagram from jwilly_at33. Wants to know if we would drop Tom Brady if we have Joe Burrow for more positional depth. So presumably he is ready to go for the playoffs. Let's take a look at some matchups. So Joe Burrow this week has the Steelers. Week 15, the Browns. 16, the Patriots. 17, the Bills. So I understand why this question is being asked, because you might look at a couple of those matchups and think that you might want to, I don't know, start Tom Brady just based on strength of schedule. That being said, Joe Burrow is the current overall QB4. Brady is QB18. So, I mean, any of those matchups scare you? Patriots, Bills?
I think Burrow's matchup proof, in my opinion. He's a guy you drafted fairly early in your drafts, and the way Brady's been playing, and I can't play Brady over Joe Burrow, even if he does have the Panthers in the championship game and your fantasy championship games, week 17. I still can't do it. If you're weaker at RB and wide receiver, you need some depth, like go ahead and drop Tom Brady, because you're rolling Burrow every week, in my opinion. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I think there's no chance you could bench Joe Burrow in this stretch.
What do you think?
I agree. I don't see myself benching Joe Burrow for pretty much for most quarterbacks. I mean, he's been that good. So I think you keep him in your lineup. It's tough to drop Brady, though, who realistically could get you 20 points at any time. Injuries could happen to Joe Burrow. You never know. But at this point, you're banking on health. You're assuming you're going to, Joe Burrow is going to be there. And if there's a guy out there like, James Cook, for example, I don't know, he probably would have been picked up at this point. But if there are guys like that are kind of like still in that limbo of could it be a RBBC, but there's upside, pick those guys up, because I think those guys are more likely to be league winners than a Tom Brady who'll just be on your bench.
Great example. I'm not dropping Brady just for the sake of dropping him and making sure that I'm not rostering two quarterbacks, because I know that some people do feel that way going to playoffs. They say, okay, I'm getting rid of the depth at my one-off positions, my quarterback, my tight end, my defense. But if you're holding guys to play for, defense is a little different because you might have one that you want to play each week depending on matchups. But I don't see anything wrong with holding two. Well, one great option, one good option. But if you need positional depth, like you said, if you're thin at running back, I'm not losing any sleep over dropping Tom Brady and playing Burrow in those kind of traditionally harder matchups against the Patriots and the Bills. Yes, Brady's matchups are more appealing. I just don't have any confidence that he's going to take advantage of them in a way that Burrow can't succeed against tough defenses, because he's been doing it all year in a way that Brady hasn't.
Burrow and Chase are about to get on another hot streak, just like last year. I feel it in my bones, just like that McKinnon touchdown. Like Burrow and Chase are about to go nuclear the rest of this year.
There you have it, folks.
I just know it.
Locked and loaded. Well, let's stay on the hot hand with Sanchi. I'm going to kick one to you that is kind of your expertise here. Tommy Donuts writing it from YouTube. What are your expectations for Matt Breida if Barkley doesn't suit up?
Not good against Philly, man.
Are we expecting him not to play? Yeah, they have the Eagles.
He was in doubt yesterday because of his neck. Now they're saying they expect him to suit up. If you're in a must-win game to get into the playoffs or hold your spot, I don't want to play Matt Breida if Barkley can't go. I think Daniel Jones will be the RB1. He usually runs well against Philly, and he'll get you the points with his legs this week. But I don't have it in me to bench.
Was that about to be cojones? Was that the word?
It might have been. It might have been. I don't have it in me to play Matt Breida. My expectations are not high. I would look elsewhere if you can. If you're desperate, you got to do what you got to do. But they're saying Barkley's going to go now. Time will tell. And yeah, expectations are low.
Well, Breida is certainly not a 1-to-1 replacement. I don't think you could even optimistically expect 70-80% of him. But Marvin, if you need a flex, are you holding your nose and starting him, or is he just not going to help you?
If I was really desperate for a flex option, I'd be fine starting him, but I wouldn't feel excited about it. Kind of just the points that you guys laid out already. It just is a matchup. And you also saw with this season with Barkley a little bit where he's not as efficient behind that offensive line, that offense as a whole. It just happens, right? And then he breaks out a big play, but that's Barkley, right? It's not because of usage and the workload. It's Barkley and his talent. You don't have that with Breida. So if he's not, and if that offense isn't clicking and he's getting, maybe if inefficient touches, I don't expect much out of Breida in a matchup where I see them trailing. I see the Eagles putting up a ton of points, and then they could be buried pretty quickly in a high scoring game that favors the Eagles.
Yeah, when when a running back is succeeding despite the matchups, which Barkley has for the most part this season, you need to really understand why. Like, is it a product of a great offense and a good offensive system where that role is valuable, or is it because you have an athlete who's just a 99th percentile human being who just does things that nobody else in the world can do? And it's the latter. In the case of Saquon Barkley, you're not going to be able to plug a second string, a third string running back in and see the same kind of results. Whereas, and we just talked about Samaje Perine on the Bengals coming in and kind of picking up where Joe Mixon left off, because I think that is just a different, like that is the other example. That's where you have a great system, a great running back role on a high scoring offense. That's just really not what we're seeing in New York in the backfield. It's just Barkley succeeding despite all these other things.
The line is healthier. As of last week, it got healthier. They got Neal back, a couple other pieces. Should be a lot better moving forward, hopefully. But it's Philadelphia.
Sure, but you don't have a Joe Burrow and a Jamar Chase that you have to respect the passing game. They're gonna,
Poor Daniel Jones, man. He's played so well with Walmart bag boys, and it kills me.
Yeah. Well, there you go, Tommy. Expectations are, don't get your hopes up.
That's it.
Sammy in Louisiana wants to know Hollywood or Darius Slayton, speaking of the Giants, in half PPR man. This week. So we got the Cardinals versus the Patriots, which is kind of a tough matchup for the passing game. Giants versus the Eagles, which is brutal. Sanch,
take this. Talked about softball. Jones playing well, but his receivers not giving him any help. It's Hollywood Brown 10 out of 10 times for me, even in the hard matchup.
Marvin,
it's pretty easy for me.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Both tough matchups, but you're going with a guy was honestly on an incredible streak before he got injured. He had 6 straight games finishing the top 12 at expected fantasy points before he got injured. Like, he was on a really, really impressive streak. And we also saw glimpses back to that usage the week before their bye week when he came back after his injury, led the team in target share, was second on the team in air yard share. A lot of good things to see there. It just obviously didn't translate into as many fantasy points. I think this is the game where, honestly, Hollywood Brown gets back on track and you can start him confidently going forward.
Yeah, I mean, the clear, I understand why this question is being asked, and I agree that it's Hollywood, but I do want to flesh it out because I can see somebody looking at Darius Slayton's recent production and looking at the situation with Hollywood and saying, well, all of his success came with Hopkins off the field.
Right.
But I do think it's important that you just mentioned that we saw a pretty good target share, even with Hopkins, on the field last time Hollywood was out there. He still got 8 targets. It didn't translate to much. I think 6 catches, like 40 something scoreless yards. So, it's worth wondering, well, is his new role going to be the possession receiver, short, low value targets? Hopkins, outdid him in yards. He scored, which is worth asking. But I think that either way, did they say, half PPR? So, I mean, you have the baseline. He's probably both these guys are probably going to see at least 5 targets. But I still, if I'm going to bet on either of these guys to get into the end zone, it's going to be Hollywood. I mean, the touchdown equity in Arizona versus the Giants for receivers specifically is just in a different league. So that's especially if Saquon starts the game for the Giants, because when they get in the red zone, I mean, if I have Saquon Barkley, I'm giving him the ball instead of throwing it to Darius Slayton. But that's just me. I'm not an NFL coach.
You said everyone was overthinking, right? You said everyone was overthinking. This is a perfect example. Like, Hollywood Brown's a wide receiver 2, and Darius Slayton's a desperate flex play, or maybe a wide receiver 3 if you're in a deep 3 receiver league. You just have to play Hollywood Brown here.
Yeah, and I want to clarify, it is okay to overthink. It's okay to look at everything from every angle, as you should be, approaching playoff time, because you don't want to miss anything. But it's also important to be able to step away from it and get an outside perspective. It's harder when it's your team and you're looking at every detail and you've been paying attention to the trends and how your guys are doing. But that's why shows like ours exist, and accounts like Marvin on Twitter, people who are responsive and will kind of be that sounding board for you to say, am I crazy? I'm looking at it this way. talk me out of it. That's what we're here for. But sometimes you're right. Sometimes you start. What was our hot take in the first question? Sometimes you start Tony Pollard over Joe Mixon. We'll see. All we can do is tell you how we see it and leave the final decision to you.
Trust your gut. That's rule number one.
Yes. And sometimes we get questions like this from Victor in New Jersey. If I lose this week, it actually puts me against the guy I'd rather face in round 1 of playoffs. Are you for or against tanking in this situation? We've had
Bush League.
Sort of similar questions in the past on the show. I can't let you do it, but I'm gonna get
play a lineup.
I want to get Marvin's perspective first, because Sanch and I have publicly condemned this kind of stuff on the show in the past, but maybe Marvin can change our minds. What do you got?
No, I can't change your mind, because I fully agree. I've actually gotten this question a couple of times, specifically from in like a dynasty format where you're trying to get that number 1 pick for your rookie drafts. The one thing I always tell people is that you're thinking about it from your perspective, right? You're trying to put yourself in the best situation, but you're playing against a different team. Imagine if there's someone else in the league that's trying to fight for a playoff spot and they're banking on your opponent to lose a game. It affects them too. And I know, I think there's that mindset of like, yeah, I'm just going to do what's best for my team. That selfish mindset, which, I get it too, because you want to put yourself in the best situation. But in this case, the leagues that I'm in, the leagues that I commission, I just try to discourage this and put your best lineup in there, see what happens, and you never really know. Just because, you lose this game, who knows what could happen. I mean, it's possible, that you lose next round because you thought you might win this next matchup with a guy you to face. You never know. Fantasy football is unpredictable, 90% of the time. So just put your best lineup in there and play. That
was going to be one of my points, is you can stack the deck in your favor as much as possible. There's no guarantees on how it's going to play out. And I am all for making roster moves in the best interest of your team and starting, your best roster players. But it becomes an integrity thing when your actions result in the benefit of other teams in your league. That is borderline collusion, even if it's not done with the intent of collusion. That's the outcome. And that's something that I think you can make a case for being punishable in your league. So it's something that we all would discourage here. And, Marvin, like you said, you might go through all this and create unnecessary friction with your league mates on a personal level. And then after all that, the guy that you would rather face that you put yourself in front of ends up beating you anyway. And you would have beat the other guy.
Well,
and then
you're gonna karma. Well,
you're gonna, karma. And you're gonna feel even worse. So no, don't do it. That's the long and short here. You can certainly root for your team to lose, but do it privately, not through your actions. Put your best roster out there. Whatever happens. Hopefully it works out for you.
You're not catching me rooting for my team to lose. I'll tell you that. I don't care what the situation is. If you want to get into competitive, like high stakes, like leagues with people who know what they're doing and are passionate and love this, you set your best lineup every week, no matter the situation. That should just be the end of the discussion.
Respect. So we're going to keep taking some mailbag questions here. Our phone lines are open, 618 Fanline. If you want to join us on the air and talk some fantasy football, discuss your teams, ask us questions, or just, ask how we're doing, talk about, I don't know, that gross Packers jersey behind Marvin in the picture.
It's a nice jersey.
Yeah,
it's really outdated nice. At this point, though. I got to change that to a Christian Watson jersey, apparently.
That's right. I'm sitting about 15 feet away from a framed Jay Cutler jersey. You just can't see it in my camera shot.
I have a mini Danny Dimes signed helmet over there somewhere.
For some reason, I thought you were going to say Danny DeVito, but Danny Dimes makes a lot more sense.
Danny Not DeVito. I have Tarantino.
That's
nice
cool.
Tarantino autograph.
That's pretty sweet.
Danny DeVito, underrated Giants quarterback. Christian in New York wants to know if he should stream the Chiefs defense against the Broncos this week or stick with San Francisco, who is playing the Buccaneers, I believe, this week. So San Francisco has been, an elite fantasy defense. They have a much harder matchup this week. Chiefs are kind of average to below average with an incredible matchup. And that's where we're at with Russell Wilson and the Broncos, is we're targeting them for streaming defenses.
Yeah.
My, how the mighty have fallen. Marvin, who do you like here?
Quick.
I actually do like the Chiefs matchup a little more. They're the one that I would probably start over San Francisco. But I'm honestly against rostering two defenses. So if that's what it requires for you to start the Chiefs, I wouldn't do it. I will say, though, that the Chiefs do have a decent schedule going forward where you could realistically send the rest of the way. So dropping the San Francisco defense while they've been really good might not be a terrible, idea, because San Francisco, they face Tampa, then they face the Seahawks, who've been really good. Commanders, which is, that's fine. And then the Raiders, who are putting up points. Their defense is just giving up a bunch too. So I don't know if that's necessarily the greatest road into the fantasy playoffs for San Francisco. Then the Chiefs face the Broncos, Texans, Seahawks, and then the Broncos again, which, that's pretty good. So
yeah.
I wouldn't mind dropping the San Francisco defense. I know it's crazy, but I mean, defenses are so hard to predict anyway. So I just match up with the Chiefs.
That's a really good point. Does anything change for you if it's a league with a really deep bench? I assume this is specifically, shallow to medium benches. You don't want to roster 2 defenses, but if there are leagues out there with 8, 9 bench spots,
yeah,
I
think
have that luxury.
If you have that extra bench spot where you're just rostering some guy who's like the wide receiver 5 on the team, yeah, definitely pick up the defense, because I think you could probably mix and match with these 2 defenses. Potentially start San Francisco against the Commanders. That's a good matchup, right? So if you do have the spot, I think grab the Chiefs, start them this week, and then pivot.
I like it. Sanch, thoughts?
See, I'm different here, because at this point in the year, with the playoffs coming up, I don't mind holding 2 defenses at all. And I totally get the one defense thing. You never know. Every week's different. I totally understand that. But I do agree with Marvin here that I like the Chiefs better this week against the Broncos. But I don't mind San Fran against Derek Carr in a meaningful fantasy game. If you said that was the championship week,
I believe it is. Yeah, week 17.
Sounds pretty
Derek
good.
Carr
It's not terrible. Yeah, and then the Commanders
got embarrassed by the Rams.
Yeah,
and the Commanders the week before. So I don't mind holding them. I don't mind holding 2. You don't want to imagine you give your opponent in the playoffs a nice defensive streamer, and they come out and drop 20 on you. You're kicking yourself all off season. So yeah, I like the Chiefs this week against Russell Wilson. The Broncos should not score much at all. Definitely a good chance for a defensive touchdown or something crazy like that. And I don't mind holding both. I personally wouldn't cut San Fran, but I would start the Chiefs this week.
Yeah, I think I'm with you guys on the start sit question. As far as dropping the defense goes, I also don't mind holding a couple of defenses going in. I have been in situations on teams in the past where I don't recommend this, but it made sense for me to have a different defense to stream each week of the playoffs, and it worked out that time. Sometimes it's a detriment just depending on your team makeup and how deep you are at the positions. But I think that if you have plenty of running back depth, I would probably, that's going to change my answer a little bit, whether I'm thin at running back or wide receiver. If I'm thin at wide receiver, I'm probably still holding San Francisco, because I feel like if one of my starters goes down, I can find a pretty comparable replacement on waivers. Whereas if one of my starting running backs goes down, I'm going to need all the depth I can keep on my team heading into playoffs. So I think that's worth mentioning. But 49ers at this point in the season have played against only 2 teams that have been as hard on fantasy defenses as the Bucks are. And in week 7, they put up 1 fantasy point against the Chiefs. Last week, they put up 18 against the Dolphins. So that's how those 2 games have gone. Very polar opposite ends of the spectrum. So, I mean, flip a coin. They haven't allowed more than 17 points in a game since that week 7 match against the Chiefs. And in the past 4 weeks since they came off bye, they have 10 sacks, 9 turnovers, which is nuts. They're on fire. They're limiting offenses. They're making big plays, but Tom Brady is Tom Brady. Anything can happen. And if I'm relying on this game to get me into the playoffs, I don't know if I want to roll the dice on a situation where my defense can come out with 1 point. The floor against the Broncos this year has been, at least 5 points in every game. Usually 6 or 7 plus. Yeah. So I think I'm going to take the safe road here and stream the Chiefs. They have been okay in recent weeks. I mean, they flopped against the great Bengals offense last week, but the Broncos are not the Bengals. Russell Wilson is not Joe Burrow at this point in his career. And prior to that, they put up 10 against the Rams, which I think is probably a better comp for the Broncos offense. And
is this Purdy kid gonna keep the defense off the field, keep them fresh, or are they gonna be out there all the time? We don't know. We've never seen him play. I've heard good things. The players like him. They're hyping him up. They said he was ready. They liked him in the off season, but we'll see. He has a lot of talent around him. I'm rooting for the kid personally. It'd be a cool story, but we have to wait and see if he can keep that defense well rested off the field.
Valid point. So if you're joining us on any of our streaming platforms right now, welcome to the show. If it's your first time, make sure you subscribe to us. Feel free to drop a comment at any point, and we will answer. Just like Artie Lowenstein here on YouTube is writing in standard scoring, White with a 4 p.m. game versus Adam Thielen 1 p.m. Close matchup. Rashad White, yeah, presumably not Mike White. Do I wait to hear about Fournette before the game or just start Adam T?
I like the Thielen matchup against Detroit. I really do. I think White can be good in PPR, but you're saying it's standard. I'm probably going with the touchdown upside. It's a rough matchup for White, especially in standard. I think a lot of his value will come from catching passes this week against San Fran. So I think it's pretty easy for me. I'm rolling Adam Thielen in a high over under, and I think it should be a shootout.
Yeah, this is the first week since Rashad White kind of took over that role in the Bucks backfield where I've been apprehensive about starting him for that exact reason. You know, unless it's PPR, he could be that kind of short range safety net for Brady in this matchup, but that's not going to help you much in standard scoring. Marvin, how do you feel here?
Yeah, I agree. I think White, with some of that risk of Fournette obviously still being there, we won't really know until closer to game time. And with it being standard, you're really banking on touchdown there because he wasn't efficient on the ground last week. And I know it's a different matchup, but he's relying on that PPR value with the 8.5 targets that he's averaged for the last 2 games. So I do think Adam Thielen should have a good game. It's a great matchup, a higher scoring matchup, I believe, with Detroit kind of always, staying in with, regardless of who's playing, right? So I love it. And I just start Adam Thielen here just to be safe.
One of those rare situations where we lead the wide receiver in the standard scoring format. It's usually the running back for me in situations like that. But in this case, when you have an earlier game versus a later game, if I'm not feeling confident about the earlier guy, then there are times that I'll wait for the later play. But in this case, I love Thielen this week. I think it's going to be a shootout.
51.5.
There you go. Under. I didn't even look at the over under, but that sounds about right.
Is that the highest over under this week? I think it is, right? It's got to be.
Yeah, it's the highest.
Yeah.
So
there you go.
No, actually, 53.5. Miami, LA.
Yeah, that's a fun game.
another good one.
Yeah.
But that being said, I actually it's because it's standard. I don't like White, but I have him in a few of my DFS lineups. I think he's going to catch some passes out of the backfield this week. Definitely has a chance to score.
DFS being full PPR, right?
I think it's half point, but I still think he's going to get a lot of I don't know. I have a feeling about him this week, but in standard scoring, I just can't tell you as an analyst to play him over Adam Thielen in a game which should have a lot of points. And
Rashad White could finish this game with 8 catches on 10 targets for 35 yards.
Yeah, and then depends on your scoring. In standard, that doesn't give you much.
No, sir. Artie says, thanks, fellas. Yep. Artie, you are most welcome. Appreciate the question. Good luck. Hope we hear from you over the next few weeks through playoffs as well. Saraba Gosh writing in on YouTube. In a tight spot with Pittman and Watson on bye, half PPR, should I play Robert Woods? Maybe our first Robert Woods question of the year. Or take a chance on Greg Dortch. Bobby Trees. I haven't heard that nickname
over
in a while.
Dortch kind of cooled off, right? We thought this guy was a dynasty stash early on. This guy came out of nowhere. I'm playing
pre-Hopkins. Dortch was the thing before Hopkins came back.
Hollywood Brown's back. I just don't like the situation for Dortch.
A shame because I thought the Human Dortch was one of the best nicknames in fantasy football. But Bobby Trees gives him a run for his money. Marvin, where do you land on this?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's got to be Bobby Trees. We didn't see Hollywood Brown, Dortch, and Hopkins all on the field. I think Dortch missed the game in week 12, if I remember right. And so I believe with all the wide receivers healthy, and I think with Rondale Moore coming back too, I think Dortch is not going to really have that consistent role that we saw earlier in the season. So I'd go with Bobby Trees with Burks out as well. I think with the concussion. So should be
right there with you. I like Dortch's offense a lot better, and he might get lucky. He's got a puncher's chance of just catching a touchdown because I think they're gonna have more opportunities in the red zone. But Robert Woods is role in his offense is just so much more valuable. And I think it's enough for me to tip the scales to start Woods in that situation. But good question. Good luck to you. Appreciate the question. They're coming in off YouTube. Fast and Furious here. Shoot 210. Half PPR must win game. Do I go Michael Gallup or James Cook in the flex spot? Wow.
I think I'm leaning Gallup here. He hasn't had a monster game yet, but
I think that's being generous.
Yeah, that Thanksgiving game against the Giants, I saw him make like 3 circus catches on us. He had a nice target share. He had 7 targets last week, 8 against the Giants. Dak loves him. It was only a matter of time until he got rolling in this offense. The one thing that scares me is the thing we talked about before, that if Dallas comes out to a huge lead and they just keep pounding the rock. But I'm leaning Gallup over James Cook. I think Dak's gonna get him the ball, and I like where his targets are going.
That Thanksgiving game with the circus catches, he caught 5 of 8 for 63 yards, and that's it. So that's
Nothing
that's
special.
The risk. Yeah, that's.
But
the
I'm
risk
talking about
Gallup.
the way he looked on the field, like that injury is
great talent.
like he's healing up.
Yep.
Yeah. As far as how he looks, I like his progression and the direction he's moving, and I think he could be a guy you want to put in your flex spot, especially in a good matchup like the Houston Texans. He could easily get 2 touchdowns,
Yeah, we talked about the concern with the Cowboys going up early and abandoning the passing game, but Gallup could be a big part of the reason why they get up early. I mean, he could just come out and torch them. He put up 2 touchdowns last week on 7 targets, only 23 yards, but that's kind of the nature of an offense with a lot of weapons, a lot of mouths to feed. Marvin, you want to weigh in here?
Yeah, absolutely. I do think Gallup should be a fine start. I slightly lean James Cook here, and I think it's just I think there's a little more risk here with James Cook. I think there's a lower floor just because we've only seen 1 game of him leading that backfield in what was a more competitive game. He led that backfield back in week 2, but that was more because they were up by like 30 points in the 4th quarter. Got some garbage time carries, but last week, what from James Cook was impressive because that was true RB1 usage. He was an RB1 in expected fantasy points, which means something, right? Whether that repeats again, we don't know yet. And that's the problem, is that we just don't have a good enough sample size. But against the Jets, who are actually, it's the middle of the pack matchup, I'm willing to take that chance just because I think the upside might be a little higher. To your point, Gallup could be the guy that catches the touchdowns, but if he doesn't, well, then they might be running down the ball quite a bit. And I could see the floor being lower for Gallup.
Yeah, so I'm looking at Cook. Like you said, he led the Buffalo backfield in carries and targets last week, which is significant because coming into the year we thought he was going to be the guy catching passes out of the backfield, not necessarily the guy assuming leadership in rushing attempts by week 14. But that could be where we're at. Double-digit carries in 2 of the last 3 games. But the one where he did not get double-digit carries, he only got 2. So, like you said, there's risk with Cook. At least 5 targets in the last 2 games. So there's a world where he kind of gets comparable target share to Michael Gallup plus the rushing attempts, plus he's on the Bills. Sanj, you have a question?
Yeah, you guys like Cook over Singletary is what you're telling me, because I'm playing Singletary kind of 10 times still over James Cook. It could go either way. I see the argument. This is a tough question, and it's a great question. So thank you, Shoot. This is what we live for here. These nice debates. I think Devin Singletary can have a really nice game. Myself,
he could. I mean, with James Cook leading the backfield, is that going to be a result of negative game scripts only, or can this happen, Marvin, in neutral to positive game scripts? That's the question.
That is the tough question. $1 million question. It's because we just haven't really seen much of it yet, right? We haven't seen. This is where if we had a second game to look at, I think we'd maybe know the answer. And I have to release with this because I think Singletary is a free agent this coming off season.
It's his contract here, I believe.
Cook would be the guy that they Yeah, so I was wondering, James Cook, are they trying to transition over to him? Is this like the post-buy rookie bump that we're seeing? That's kind of what I'm banking on. Like I said, there's that floor, though, where, I mean, I don't think his floor is going to be that low because he was involved even before last week. But personally, I think the upside might be just a little higher. this is where you're kind of like banking on, hey, do we go with a known of Gallup? We know we can get you and what his upside could be, but James Cook, I mean, there's so much unknown there. Talent, explosiveness is there. Will they continue to lean on him though? That's where I am banking on it, because I think they have to transition to the rookie at some point, because he's the future based on the draft capital that they gave him. I get the argument though from both of you guys though to go with Gallup.
Well, I appreciate you both making your cases to me, who will once again serve as the tiebreaker. And I'm vamping for time because I'm not sure. I think just the usage of James Cook, the narrative with the Buffalo backfield is just so fluky. And we're this deep in the season, and I'm still as queasy about starting a Bills running back as I was in week 1 coming into the year, even after Singletary finished the way that he did last season.
Because Allen's the RB1.
I think if it's a must-win game, which Shoot says it is, I'm probably going to take the known for Gallup in this situation. But it is close. James Cook could come out and certainly have a bigger game, but we haven't seen a boom out of Cook. So you have to ask, what even is his ceiling? It's not like we've seen him come out and put up like 2 or 3 20-point games on the season. So all things considered, I think both of their ceilings are probably the 10 to 15 point range in half PPR. And I think Cook's floor is just a little lower than Gallup. So I'm going to go Gallup here. Shoot, I appreciate you sticking with us through this long form answer.
And I know Marvin said the argument of James Cook is the future. They want to get him more involved. But I also see the other side of it where these guys on the contract year, and especially if they know they're probably not going to resign them, that they want to run them into the ground, get everything they can out of them. We're seeing Josh Jacobs on a contract year holding his damn ribs, getting fed by the Raiders. We're seeing Jamal Williams lead the league in rushing touchdowns,
just like we all expected.
My poor boy Swift, but contract years, especially if they don't think they're going to pay him. There's two sides to that argument. I think Singletary is going to get a lot of burn on this stretch, because I don't think he's going to be back next year. But we don't know. It should be interesting to wait and see what happens with that backfield down the stretch.
Yeah.
Well, it's a 2-1 vote on James Cook in that situation. But that being said, Marvin is smarter than both of us, so you can weigh those votes however you'd like. And good luck to you, Shoot. Sarab has a follow-up. Just got an update that Rondale Moore is out for Monday night. Does that change your opinion on the human Dortch? It certainly doesn't change my opinion on his nickname. But he also writes in that he also has DeAndre Hopkins for context. So I'm probably not starting Hopkins and Dortch. I think that this first piece of update influenced me a little bit, but then the second one about Hopkins, I think, swung the pendulum back for me. So
I wouldn't want to play both.
Too many eggs in one basket for me.
Yeah, agreed.
Shoot says great points. Definitely had to subscribe. We appreciate that so much.
Thank you, Shoot.
Welcome to the show. Looking forward to talking to you in the future. Who from
posted
Reddit.
On Reddit. Was that you, Greg?
It was me.
Nice.
So I do it a few times a year. I try not to do it too much because you're not really supposed to over there. It is probably subject to being banned from the community.
A big time show though. We got Marvin on. Let it slide, Reddit.
The last time I posted on there was when we had Aaron Larson on a few weeks ago. And it's funny. Yeah. I posted today and I went on and I saw a comment. Somebody wrote, LOL, okay, Marvin, assuming that it was you posting it. And then I was like, wait a minute. Because I remembered that somebody last time I posted wrote, LOL, okay, Aaron. And I went back and it was the same guy. The same guy posted the same comment twice within a month. And now I'm like, how many weeks in a row can we go where he thinks it's just the guests posting this over and over before he realizes it's the host? It's me. So
haters gonna hate.
Haters gonna hate. It's
if he tuned into the show, he'd know, right?
Yeah, he would. But he's not gonna do that. So he's never gonna find out. Don't tell him. Shoot 210. Yeah, don't tell him. Josh Green writing in, can't stay but dropping in to say Doyle rules to jinx Sanchez QB to trip again. Oh, that's funny. Congrats on winning with the 2.5 points. Josh, thanks for tuning in, man. We appreciate your support on Patreon. We do have a Patreon, patreon.com/fantasyfanline. And Josh, your comment is the perfect time for us to advertise that. So thanks for that. New tier is done, goes effective on the 1st. Enjoy your weekend of games. Thanks, buddy. Good to hear from you.
Your money smells so good, Josh. Smells so good.
Gross. We are running short on time. We'll probably go a little over if that's okay with both of you, Sanchi and Marvin. You have a few extra minutes. We're going to burn through some more mailbag questions here. We just talked about James Cook, so this should be a pretty easy one. Full PPR, flex Gabe Davis or James Cook. I'm down early.
This one.
Thanks to Derek Carr from Piotr in Virginia. Piotr's in a early deficit thanks to starting Derek Carr, who I think threw nothing but picks in that game on Thursday. And that I'm glad he included that piece of context because I think it changes my answer. But Marvin, let me start with you here.
Yeah, I'm going Gabe Davis. I do.
Yes.
I know I just made the argument for James Cook, but if you're down quite a bit, and Gabe Davis has that, I always say this. I think I wrote this in an article, but he's like the nitro button in your lineup. That if you know he can take you up there to that high scoring week, and Diggs will be covered by Sauce Gardner most likely. Davis will be the guy that probably has a much better matchup, and so I'll take that with the potential of like 2 long touchdowns.
Yeah, I think so too.
I agree.
Think Cook is a little safer in a full PPR format, but if I need a boom, Gabe Davis is the guy. Cook this year, no booms. Davis, several booms. Yep. The math is easy. Sanch, you agree?
You know how much I love Gabe Davis. Unfortunately, he's not the guy I thought he would be this year. He's still kind of boom or bust, but
it's funny because the targets have been there. Like my concern when you were talking up Davis in the offseason was his usage. I was like, there's so many weapons in that offense. They run the ball so much with Josh Allen. Like, what kind of target shares they're going to be for Gabe Davis? And it's been great, but for whatever reason, the fantasy points haven't been there. Like, it doesn't feel like it, but he has at least 5 targets in every game since week 4. Does that surprise you guys as much as it surprised me?
Yeah. He's kind of thrown me off a little bit. That's still my guy. He's been in my lineup every week. I'm waiting for that next boom. As Marvin said, Sauce Gardner going to be on Diggs. I mean, it's still Stephon Diggs. He could still have a big game. Gardner's still a rookie, even though he's looked amazing. But if he gets locked up for some reason, Davis is going to be that guy. And I guaranteed the McKinnon touchdown last week. Not always right, but I'm feeling a little risky, and we're gonna guarantee that Gabe Davis score.
Let's keep it rolling.
Whatever. I'll stop guaranteeing him if this one loses, but I'm feeling hot.
There you have it, folks. Set in stone. So Gabe Davis's big issue this year has really been catch rate because the targets have been there, but I'm looking at his game log and it's like 2 catches on 7 targets, 3 catches on 6 targets, and I think the context of that is that he just gets so many deep targets. Like that's his role in the offense. And those traditionally have a lower hit rate. The Jets are very strong against deep passing, but that's usually because, they lock up the number 1 option and most teams don't have a pair of receivers like Diggs and Davis. So I think they're going to have more trouble with Gabe Davis than they typically have with a wide receiver 2 on the teams they faced in past weeks. So it is unanimously Gabe Davis for us here on the show. Let's keep it moving. Daniel and PA need a fill-in for Justin Fields this week, who is on bye. Trevor Lawrence, Daniel Jones, or Tyler Huntley. All right, so
not Huntley. That over-under 36.5. I am not playing Tyler Huntley.
That's disgusting. I'm just going to cross out all of the Huntley notes that I have here. Lawrence has the Titans, Daniel Jones and the Giants against the Eagles, like we said. Also tough. Lawrence is questionable. Questionable with a toe injury. So, Sanch, does that make it Daniel Jones for you against the Eagles?
Well, if Lawrence plays, I'm playing Lawrence. But but if he doesn't, Daniel Jones over Huntley for me, and it's easy. 44.5 over under. And I've seen Daniel Jones, he said that he brought up the trip before, but he runs well against Philly because that's pretty much all he can do. If they stuff up Saquon, I don't see him throwing much. I see Jones tucking and running a lot this game, and that's fantasy gold. So for me, it's Lawrence if he plays, but Jones if he doesn't.
You know who also tucks and runs really well? Tyler Huntley. Interestingly,
and that's over-under scares me. 36.5.
That sucks. There's no stats that I can provide to make that less terrible, but. The Baltimore offense has one of the most unique quarterbacks on the planet, right? And Lamar Jackson. And they're in a really fortunate situation where when he goes down, they don't have to change much about how that offense operates because Huntley's also a really good runner. He's not Lamar Jackson. He's not Justin Fields. And I love that I can use those two in the same kind of sentence like that. But, he was serviceable last week. He was useful for fantasy last season for a stretch when Jackson went down. Don't love the matchup against Pittsburgh. I think that I actually would lean Huntley over Daniel Jones, but it's Lawrence for me if he plays as well because he also has the best matchup. He's been really solid. Marvin, set us straight here.
6-pack bet, another one. Jones versus Huntley.
Let me hear Marvin's argument first, and then I'll maybe agree to it.
You're 1-0 on me. You're 1-0.
I know. I might want to quit while I'm ahead.
All right, that's fair.
Marvin, what do you think?
I agree with you guys. I mean, assuming Lawrence is healthy, he's active, he's the guy that I'd go with. I mean, that's a really good matchup with the Titans allowing, I think, the second most points to the quarterback position over the last 6 weeks. Trevor Lawrence has been, for the most part, a borderline QB1 because of how often they've had to throw the ball. He sometimes provides some value on the ground as well. So I'm fine starting Trevor Lawrence. I think that he's the guy you go with. If he is inactive, I don't like the matchup for Daniel Jones, but I lean once again because of that the necessity of him to have to run the ball quite a bit. I mean, Tyler Huntley can do that too. I think based on what we've seen, it's a super small sample size of 6 games of him starting. He kind of has that up where I think similar to Lamar Jackson can carry his production with the rushing game, but the floor was pretty low last year as well. I mean, he had some low scoring games even with the rushing upside. So that's why I lean Daniel Jones. I just really hope for whoever's asking this question, Daniel, that Trevor Lawrence is active and you don't have to worry about it because he's the guy I'd easily go with over those other two.
Me too.
Sanch, I will not take your bet based on that argument. I was going to wait and see on Marvin's opinion. Yeah, good question. It's Trevor Lawrence. And when you say borderline QB, he's been putting up 16, 17, 20 points a game, but I'll take that, man. He's been reliably solid.
He's been having a solid year.
Yeah, he might not have the few points that he's been adding to his baseline rushing if he's got a bad toe, so just be aware of that, but that's not enough to concern me, and to start Daniel Jones or Tyler Huntley over.
I can't wait till he gets Calvin Ridley.
Albert Marican,
it's gonna be interesting.
One of our regulars here writing in, Jerry Jeudy or DJ Moore full PPR.
Do you trust Darnold or Wilson more, Albert? That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Marvin.
Go ahead. You got it.
This is rough, man. I love me some Jerry Jeudy, and as bad as the Broncos have been, he still gets the ball. The Chiefs should be up.
Good role in that offense.
Chiefs should be up big, which means they're gonna have to throw, even if it's ugly. They're gonna have to force feed somebody. I know Sutton's banged up. Sutton's probably gonna miss.
Oh,
right?
I think he's out. I think they ruled him
out. They ruled him out. Just because Sutton's out, I'm leading Jerry Jeudy here because I think the Chiefs are gonna get up big, and I think they're gonna have to get the ball, even if it's garbage time. Full PPR. I like Jeudy more than DJ Moore with Sam Darnold throwing him more.
Me too, Marvin.
Agreed. I like DJ Moore with Sam Darnold back, but I'd like to see more than a game back with Darnold to really put my eggs in that basket. It's a pretty bad basket to be in. So I don't want to.
It's got holes in the bottom.
Oh, absolutely.
That's a rough one, Albert.
Yeah,
I'll be rooting for you. Let's go,
granted, the Broncos offense isn't that much better either, but I love the arguments about Sutton, the deep role for Jeudy. I think I'd go with him.
So we like Jeudy better than Moore, but do we like Moore better than Mike Williams? How do you like that segue to one of our mailbag questions here from Darius in California? If Mike Williams is back, and he is back, would you start him over DJ Moore at wide receiver 3 position in half-point PPR?
Yes,
so Sanchez starting Williams. Marvin?
If we knew Mike Williams is fully healthy and that he couldn't re-injure himself, I would easily go with Mike Williams.
All right, so those are two different things.
That's
because
a big if.
The last time he was fully healthy, he played one game since week 7. He was healthy in week 11. I think it was against the Chiefs, and he immediately hurt himself again. So
see, and here's the thing: I started him in that week,
me too,
and it burned me. So this is where I'm trying to not be biased, but I do sort of lean DJ Moore here. Just the higher baseline. I know he get his targets. He's had the 30% target share in 4 of his 6 games. So that counts for something. It's not quality targets because it's coming from Darnold and who else they have there. It's at least a higher baseline than potentially what Mike Williams could provide if he's still recovering and trying to get back on track. Obviously, though, Mike Williams for the upside because that guy is by far in the better offense and role.
It's the highest over under of the week. I think it's gonna be a shootout. You're pretty much praying to the fantasy gods that if Mike Williams goes out there, he plays the full game, and if he plays the full game, you're gonna make the right choice by playing over more. But as we talked about, he can go out, get one catch, and just limp off, and that's it. And then you're sitting there in a big game like, damn, I really played Mike Williams.
I will, before I answer the question, I will definitively say that I am exhausted with both of these players. I don't ever want to have anything to do with either of them ever again. It's like a bad relationship because we just keep making the same mistakes over and over with both these guys. Like nobody ever changes. Nothing changes. They both have the same abusive patterns towards us as fantasy managers. Like Mike Williams, we were like, this is the year he's different. He's changed. He's going to come out. He was like a top 10 guy the first 7 weeks. And then he did what he always does. He gets hurt and he never plays again. So, fool me once. DJ Moore, we're like, this is the year that he's got a quarterback who can get him the ball. No, it's the same story, same narrative. Now we have Sam Darnold coming in. And we're like, but this is the quarterback. So honestly, I'm fed up with the both of you. And if I have to pick, I'm picking DJ Moore, but I don't feel good about it. Just because we saw last week and maybe it's a trap, but he seemed like Sam Darnold's favorite target. What does that mean? Probably not much. I'm going to have to see it again on the field for Mike Williams. I'm going to have to see him out there, not as a decoy, not breaking his ankle, in the huddle. I have trust issues with both these players, but I'm going to take DJ Moore here just for the better odds of completing a game. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm picking Williams, but I hope it's DJ Moore because I'm in a must-win, getting the playoff matchup against Herbert Williams. That stack. So fins up. Shut them down.
I'm leaving both of them. I'm taking the kids to go stay with my mother. We're done. Tony in New York, should I flex Garrett Wilson or James Conner this week in half-point PPR? FYI, Tony, you don't have to say half-point PPR because PPR stands for point per reception. So little free advice for there on the side. Half-point per reception.
Sanch? I'm not benching Garrett Wilson, man. I don't think you can bench Garrett Wilson right now. This guy, he's up there with the Christian Watsons and potential league winners.
Don't remind me.
It's Garrett Wilson for me. I was off Connor since the beginning. I still don't trust him. And just the numbers Wilson's been putting up. They pull him up here in full point. His last few games.
Oh, they're great. He's a top 12 wide receiver since week 8. So
absolutely amazing. 15 freaking targets last week. You're not leaving that on the bench, man.
I can't bench him until Zach Wilson starts again on that team. James Conner has been the last 2 weeks. I think that offense has really opened up with Hopkins back, and I think that has been a bigger deal for Conner than maybe we realized coming into the season. Bell cow workload on the ground, 4 targets a game, but he's got the Patriots this week, and that is a tough matchup.
He got the Bill Connor.
Yeah.
I'm talking Garrett Wilson. Last time he played the Bills with Zach Wilson, he had 8 grabs for 95 yards, and that was with Zach Wilson.
There you go.
So I'm expecting another monster with Mike White. This game's gonna be good. Like Jets Bills, meaningful game in December. It's crazy. It's crazy how fast that game. It's usually like, all right, Jets are out, Bills cakewalk, but it's not a cakewalk.
Marvin, where are you at here?
Yeah, I can't. I feel like I'm agreeing a lot with you guys, but you guys are making good points. So I got to go with Garrett Wilson. You guys kind of outlined the volume with him. The 27.7% target share with Mike White is really, really good. And the interesting thing is and I know this has circulated around social media too, but the Jets ranked 12th in the league in neutral situation passing rate with Mike White, where they were in the complete opposite with Zach Wilson for whatever reason. They're passing the ball more now. Plus Wilson's getting an elite target share. I mean, that's like a recipe for fantasy production, high-end fantasy production. We've seen that here over the last 2 weeks. So it's hard to bench that guy who arguably has a higher upside than Connor. And the Bills also rank 6th in it's the 6th best matchup against wide receivers over the last 6 weeks. They've given up points to the wide receiver position. So stick with Wilson.
That's surprising. Sure. I think people hear Bills defense and they get scared just based on the reputation and how started the season, but you're right. Recent trends have been very different. So there you go, Tony in New York.
Wilson was my guy. We did that show early in the season with Spencer, and we were talking about our favorite receivers. Everyone's like Olave, and I like Garrett Wilson.
Everyone being Spencer.
Olave or Drake London, and I said my favorite 2 out of the draft were Garrett Wilson and Jameson Williams. And we're going to wait and see on Williams, but I think I hit the nail on the head with Garrett Wilson. I loved him ever since at Ohio State. I root for the Buckeyes, so I watched a lot of them. Him and Olave together, man, that was something special. Both those
so
guys
far
are
so good
studs,
on those picks. And as
Garrett
much
Wilson
as all
is
of
a
us,
stud. I
as much
love
as all of
that
us
guy.
agreeing with each other on all these answers makes for great radio. Hopefully it gives you, the listeners, some assurance that
there were some disagreements.
Yeah,
it's just great minds think alike.
That's
we're
what
all,
it is.
We're all logical people. We're logical.
Also, Sanchi and I read a lot of Marvin's content, so that might have something to do with it. It kind of just influences the way that we think.
One of the best in the game.
That's right.
Earned his stripes.
Let's rapid fire these last couple questions and call it a day here. Ralph in California. Never thought I'd ask this, but Najee Harris or Jamal Williams in full PPR. It's playoffs or bust this week. I'm overthinking everything. Yeah, this was the one that I think he kind of speaks for everybody who wrote into the show this week. Every decision matters. This is a big one. Jamal Williams at this point in the season, let me pull up the numbers here. He is
Swift is coming back.
Still has double-digit carries in every game this year. Double-digit carries in Week 14. Still a top 8 running back. It seems like his role is legit. Seems like the Lions' offense is legit. Marvin, though, has been highlighting a recent increase in Swift's usage. I mean, is this the week where he kind of overtakes Williams and he becomes irrelevant? What does it mean?
Yeah, I think you saw that. You saw that a little bit last week already with Swift. Kind of arguably, I mean, the numbers show he had the higher expected points. He had the more valuable role last week. But I think there's still value here with Jamal Williams. And I know it seems crazy, but I honestly would still start Jamal Williams because of we talked about this game being that one of the highest over under. And then also with Detroit, they love to run the ball when they're inside the 5-yard line. So when they're there, they're going to run the ball and it's going to be Jamal Williams. And the chance of a touchdown there, potentially 2 touchdowns, who knows, this is a high scoring game. I mean, I'll take that where Najee has potentially maybe a higher baseline, but I mean, he's been so hit or miss where he just hasn't really found the end zone. It's just a product of that offense.
He's been pretty reliably around like the 10 fantasy point mark. Najee Harris has
better though
in
over
6 of the last 7 games. Yeah, so he's not killing you. Like, it's an okay floor, but Jamal Williams' floor is right there with him. And I would much sooner bet on a boom for Williams and a better offense than Harris. And if you haven't been a Najee Harris manager this year and you're still thinking of him from last year and kind of the way that he was talked about in preseason during the draft season, you're like, oh, PPR machine, full PPR format. Williams hasn't gotten a target since week 8. So you're like, okay, so it's Najee Harris, but he's been getting like 1 target a game. Like, this is not the PPR machine that we saw last season. So there's not really an advantage there.
For sure.
I'm going Jamal Williams.
I also, another agreement across the board. We talked about the high over under against the lowest, 36.5. Just scares me. I'm following Vegas here, chasing those points, and that should be shootout. And how are you going to bench Jamal Williams? As Marvin said, they get to the goal line, he's like a guaranteed touchdown. I see Swift out there, I start jumping for joy because I'm so shocked, you know. And he gets a few, but like he's their guy in the red zone. And he's going to continue to be their guy.
Been a monster. Like, Williams isn't getting the passing work, but he's getting all the red zone touches. He's getting a ton of work on the ground between the 20s as well. So it's not like they just put him in there to vulture touchdowns, which is kind of what he's been in years past. He is a double-digit carry guy, and they put him in when they need a touchdown. And that's really valuable on an offense that's scoring a surprising amount of touchdowns this year. So don't fear Jay Willie.
5% chance to make the playoffs, Lions. 5% chance.
Is that true?
Yeah,
I thought they were dead.
They're a better team than we thought they would be, and I'm rooting for them. I think Goff took a lot of crap. You know, he's been solid, and I like to see him succeed.
As a Bears fan, I am also rooting for them because that probably means the Packers definitely don't make it. We were at our.
I mean, at 5%. I don't even want to know where the Packers are right now. That's probably 2%. Probably closer to 0 because it's pretty bad.
Would have been 0 if we could have won last week, but that's a story for another day. I think we're at our last mailbag question here for the week. Bruce in New Jersey and Jay represent. PPR league, start Latavius Murray or Dameon Pierce. Okay. The Broncos and Latavius Murray have the Chiefs, and Dameon Pierce and the Texans have the Cowboys. So their fantasy production profiles are surprisingly pretty similar lately. Their ceilings haven't been that much different, but I'm not expecting a ceiling performance out of either here, right? Like, both these teams are going to.
I hate this.
Like, neither of these running backs are going to be ahead in this match at all.
Before we get into it, Packers 4% chance to make the playoffs.
Oh, How about that?
Okay. All right.
So you're
Comeback.
saying
Here we go.
there's a chance.
There is a
There's a
chance.
chance.
Yup.
Great. I'm going to kick this to Marvin first. Dameon Pierce tends to disappear when his team is not in a neutral or positive game script. Does that scare you off of starting him here over Latavius Murray? Because when I say tend to, he's done it twice in recent memory, but that's pretty much been it. Like, he's been bust proof all season until like the last month.
See, that's where I lean Dameon Pierce, because this is more of a recent trend. And I know those weeks 11 and 12, but then week 13 we saw a slight flip in his usage, where that 35.6% opportunity share, the year, that was heavy, where he was like the 40s, 50%, where he was done. It scares me because of the matchup, but I have to think that if the Texans even want to be in this game, they have to go through Pierce. So they're going to use him. He's going to have a lot of value in the first 2 to 3 quarters. And I think that should be enough to get you more points than Latavius Murray would get you in a really rough offense. So, I mean, I don't like either of these guys, but I'd probably pick Pierce.
I wholly agree that the Texans want to be in this game. They're going to have to go through Pierce, but we don't get everything that we want. And I think they're going to try that, and it's going to fall apart early.
Cowboys defense is amazing, man. I hate to say it.
Conversely, though, like if I'm the Broncos and I want to keep the ball away from Mahomes, which I would also lean on the ground game, but I don't know if I'm leaning on Latavius Murray. I mean, this is a very different run game than they started the season with. And I don't know if they can lean on him to keep the ball away from the Chiefs and play possession football. Sanch, who are you starting here if you have to?
In a huge week with playoff implications on the line, there's no chance in hell I'm putting Latavius Murray in my lineup. I'm gonna ride or die with the guy I drafted early, Dameon Pierce. Hope for him to fall into the end zone, have a solid floor game, because the ceiling is definitely capped. Both these matchups are horrible, but between Murray and Pierce, it's Pierce for me.
Yeah, I am going to go a little contrary and start Murray here, but it's like 51 to 49% in my heart. And I honestly don't want to start either of them. So I don't know if this is a flex where you can go out and maybe grab a wide receiver off of waivers with higher upside. If that is an option, I would suggest doing that in a full PPR league. If it's your running back 2 spot, close your eyes and take whichever argument you like better from the show, and we're hoping for the best for you. We'll be thinking of you, Bruce from New Jersey. I had to look at his name because I already forgot. But that's the end of our mailbag questions. Guys, this was a lot of fun. Marvin, thanks as always for joining us. You want to give us one more plug on the way out? Let the good people of Fantasy Fanline know where to follow you, because you are a great follow.
Yeah. Hey, appreciate you guys having me on again. This was really, really fun. You guys, listeners, can find me on Twitter at @FF_MarvinE. I have my articles coming out every Wednesday and Thursday. Dynasty Report coming out Wednesdays. The expected fantasy points and usage article comes out on Thursdays. At least, and then we're gonna have some off-season content, probably with Dynasty stuff coming out, in a couple of months. So that'll be fun.
All right. Thanks as always, Marvin. Sancho, any closing words before I march us out of the show here?
Let's go, G-Man. Shock the world. Stay on your feet, Jones.
Why do I even ask?
Stay on your feet, Jones.
I'm just gonna record. I'm gonna record a sound drop of you so that at the end of every show I can say, Sanch, any words, and I push a button. It's just go Giants. Let's go, G-Man.
Go Gabe Davis.
All right, go Gabe Davis.
Find the end zone.
That's going to do it for us on Fantasy Fanline, folks. We'll be back with another expert guest next Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern time and every week for the rest of the season.
Playoffs.
You can subscribe and stream us live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch, or find us the next day on your favorite podcast platform. Follow us on all social platforms at Fantasy Fanline, where you can keep asking us questions and stay up to date on all of our content. Visit our website, fantasyfanline.com, for a schedule of our upcoming guests and to submit a question to our mailbag if you can't join us live for the show. Join our community of supporters at patreon.com/fantasyfanline to earn exclusive perks like shoutouts, call-in codes, and our listener league. For Sanchi Value, for Marvin Elequin, I am Greg Scalera. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Please subscribe. Join us next week. Goodbye.